Hi, this is Dr. Post, and I'm going to try to work each of the review problems for the first test. This is the actual test one, not a practice test. Hopefully, though, you'll be able to access these, well before the test starts. And in fact, you can even look at some of the questions as you're doing your homework and maybe get some help with that if you don't quite understand what the ALEKS is doing. So we'll start with this one, which is question 1. Says, for the following right triangle, find the side length x, round to the nearest hundredth. So the clue is that this is a right triangle, which means we can use Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem is x squared plus y squared, let's do it this way. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. And it doesn't matter which side you label A and B as long as C is the hypotenuse. Right here. So the hypotenuse is always the side across from the right angle. So in our case, C is going to be 10, and then I could say this is A and this is B. So plugging those in, I would have A squared plus 8 squared, plus b squared equals 10 squared. 8 squared is 64, plus b squared equals 100. Subtract 64, and I get b squared equals 36. Take the square root of that, and of course, mathematically, you would get a positive or negative 6. But because we're talking about distance, we never measure distance as a negative number. So my answer is simply going to be b equals 6. They use x's, so I'm going to say x equals 6 for that problem. All right, let's move to problem 2. I don't have a videographer, so just going to do my best. So problem 2 asks us to solve for x, and they give us this simple equation. The first thing I would do is distribute. So 8 times x is 8x, 8 times 3 is 24, and then I would just carry this side down as it is. And now the object when we are solving for x is to try to get all the terms with an x on one side of the equal sign and all the terms that don't have an x to be on the other side. So I could move this 3x by doing the opposite. Currently it's a minus 3x. I'm going to add a 3x as long as I make sure I do that to both sides. So I would get, add a 3x. So I would get 11x plus 24 equals 2, because those cancel. And now if I subtract 24 from both sides, I get 11x equals negative 22. And my last step would be divide by the coefficient of the x term. So in this case, divided by the 11. So I get x equals negative 2. And of course, if I was taking a test, I would plug negative 2 in for x to double check that I got the right answer. Oh, sorry. You couldn't see that negative 2 there is an answer. There it is. So I'll let that sit for a second. All right, then let's move on to question 3. Now question 3, you may not actually get all of the types of questions when you're doing your homework or whatever. But there are 3 basic types of questions on this number 3, and I wanted to show all of them to you so that you can see what they look like and how they work out. So the first one I'm going to do is this top one, and again I'll start by distributing here, and I'll distribute here as well. So negative 4 times b is negative 4b, negative 4 times 2 is minus 8, and then bring down the plus 2 equals 2b plus 12. So before I start moving terms around the equal sign, I'm going to combine any like terms that I have on either side. So these are two like terms, so negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6 equals 2v plus 12. And now I'm going to move terms around. So, I don't always have to put the v on the left side, but you can. So I'll just show you, you could also move this 4v over. So if this is a negative 4v, I'm going to add 4v to get negative 6 equals 6v plus 12. And then I'll subtract the 12. And I get negative 18 equals 6v. So my last step is to divide by 6. And I'll put my answer over here. So v equals negative 18 divided by 6 is negative 3. So I get a single answer for that. That worked out the way most equations that we do work out. This is what we're used to get a single answer. So let's see what happens with this one. We're going to end up getting no solution on this one. And let's see how that looks. So again, if I start by distributing, I'm going to have 4u plus 4 minus u equals 3u minus 3 plus 3. I'm going to combine like terms on either side. So 4u minus u is 3u plus 4 equals, those combined go away, negative 3 plus 3. So then if I decide to move my u over here, notice what happens. It cancels on both sides and I get 4 equals 0. As soon as you get to the point where you realize that it's an untrue statement, 4 does not equal 0, and there's nothing else I can do really in this equation, then my answer is, no, that's not true. This is no solution. So when we get a statement that's not true, then the answer is no solution. So let's see what happens here. My answer is going to end up being all real numbers, so I can have an infinite number of solutions in this problem. So again, this there was a single solution, this there was no solution, and my last example there will be an infinite number of solutions. So I'm going to start by distributing. I'll get 6 plus 3v minus v equals 4 plus 2v plus 2. Combining like terms, I get 6 plus 2v, 3v minus v, equals 4 and 2 is 6 plus 2v. Well, as soon as you realize that you have identical terms on the left and right side of the equal sign, then you know that this is going to end up being all real numbers. But let's say you were just kind of deep in the problem and you didn't realize it at this point. Well, the next step would be, let's say you move your v's over, and you'll notice that they cancel. So I get 6 equals 6. So here it's pretty noticeable. Well, that's always true. It doesn't matter what v was, 6 will always be 6. This is an example of what all real numbers looks like for an answer. All real numbers. So anything for v would have been true for this. If we go back to this statement, the reason is because whatever I choose for v, if I times it by 2 and add 6, I'll get the same thing over here because I'm also timesing by 2 and adding 6. I'm doing identical things to that value of v, so therefore the left and right side will always equal each other, regardless of what v is. All right, so let's look at question number 4. So here we go. In this case, they've given me almost all variables, and I want to solve for L because that's what they asked me to solve for. So what that means is I want L to be all by itself, and here's L. Well, it's affected by the 2 and the W. They're multiplying by the L. So how do I undo multiplication? I do division. So if I divide by 2W, then I would have to do the same thing over here. Notice that the 2 and W both cancel, leaving L by itself, which is what I want because they wanted me to solve for L. So the answer is V over 2W. All right, the last question is a story problem, and it's a little harder, I think. So Hopefully you can see that. And I'll try not to block it. Okay, the question says, a washer and dryer cost $1,000 combined. The cost of the washer is 3 times the cost of the dryer. What is the cost of the dryer? So what I like to do is create variables using, if I can, the letters of the words. And that way, when I get to the end of the question, I know what that letter meant. So they say the washer and dryer cost $1,000 combined. That means if I add the price of the washer plus the dryer, I should have $1,000 total. So that's the first clue. Now I have 2 unknowns, and if I have 2 unknowns, then I need at least 2 equations. So the problem should give me another equation somewhere in there. And it does. Here it says the cost of the washer, so W, equals 3 times the cost of the dryer, so 3 times the dryer. So now I have 2 equations, and therefore I can solve for the 2 unknowns. So I'm going to use substitution. So W is the same as 3D, which means I can replace that W with a 3D in the top equation. So 3D plus D equals 1,000, so 4D equals 1,000. Divide by 4, and I have D equals 250. What did they want? What is the cost of the dryer? I found the cost of the dryer. The reason I know that's the dryer is because it's D. If they had asked for the cost of the washer, and I had gotten to this point, I could have taken the 250 times it by 3 to get the cost of the washer. All right, so that's it for these first 5 questions. I will do a video for each group of 5 questions on this review. Talk to you later.